race fans, my name is Taylor and welcome back to Above the Yellow Line, the show where we talk all about the NASCAR Cup Series. Joined with me today is my buddy Adam Lucas, and as you can tell, we're matching today in the spirit of friendship above the yellow line and Ryan Blaney. Today, we're going to talk about him a little bit. We're also going to talk about last weekend's race at Richmond, and we're also going to preview some NASCAR updates and hot takes, of course, talking about the new schedule for next season. Some interesting stuff to talk about there. And finally, we are going to preview this weekend's race, the Bass Pro Shops night race at Bristol. A lot of chaos is going to happen. It is a cut-off race. I'm thinking some heartbreakers are in our future. But Adam, are you ready to dive into this podcast?
Let's do it.
All right. So the results of last weekend's race on your screen, Martin Truex Jr. made an early mistake. He jumped to the start of the race. He had to be black flagged. Nevertheless, he won. He is probably the best short track racer we have. Adam, do you agree with that?
I definitely think he is one of the best currently on the schedule. Is he the best of all time? Probably not. But for this day and age, yes, he is one of my top 3 short track specialists.
I think I almost compare him to like Chase Elliott of this era of being so consistent with road courses. Yet again, Martin Truex Jr. is also pretty consistent with road courses. He's always in the mix. He's a guy that you can always count on in your fantasy lineups and your rosters. Also, speaking of Martin Truex Jr., 2 of his teammates along with him in the top 3, we had Hamlin in second place and Christopher Bell. And then, of course, Kyle Busch, he had a late pit stop penalty. I believe it was for speeding, and that cost him, unfortunately for me. He was my winning pick this weekend, so a little bummed about that. Lost some valuable points. Nevertheless, he came back for a top 10 finish, which was pretty impressive. And so that was the result of the race. And unfortunately, I was very heartbroken about this, Adam. I don't know about you, but Kurt Busch wrecked out. Yeah.
Very disappointed. You hate to see a wily old vet like Kurt Busch, get taken out by something so strange, in all honesty. I mean, they had video evidence during the caution lap before they restarted. His tire looked fine, and they go sailing down into turn 1, make it a full lap, and then boom, that's all she wrote. So yeah, very, very disheartening for him, especially now that he's getting up there in his years, although he's going to be competing with a new team next year. It's going to be great to see the old number 45 back on track. So yeah, very disappointing, but Bristol is a great track for Kurt, and I can't wait to talk a little bit more about that here shortly.
Exactly. He's pretty good at short tracks too in Bristol, obviously. I think the Hendrick Motorsports guys that are under the cutoff line, we're going to look at that in a second, have something to fear, because right now, surprisingly, even though Kurt was taken out of the race early, he still manages to be +0 above the cutoff line. Alex Bowman and him are tied around that line, and so it's a little scary. So let's look at the playoff points now, standings. And so before we do that, actually, I want to look at our playoff standings right now, the above the yellow line crews, because I'm not doing well, to be quite honest. Total out of these last 2 weeks with our garage picks and our race winning picks, I have 5 points. That's all I have. However, Adam and Dom are doing very well. They are tied with 11 points. And then, of course, Zachary Bell is winning. He has, I believe it's 16 points up on your screen. Maybe it's 18, somewhere in there. But, it's no surprise. Zach knows. We're going to beat him. We might.
When it comes to this, Zach is definitely on his A game, and his inner nerd comes out.
Yeah, I mean, he's so passionate about the sport, and we're all here because we're passionate about the sport, but Zach takes it to a different level. Guys, absolutely check out what he does. I'll have his social media stuff in the link below, just because his passion for the sport is so incredible. He has such great opinions, such strong opinions, and it's really cool to hear him talk about that. But yeah, when it comes to race picks, you might think you're like, whoa, Zach, that's a pretty crazy pick, and he's always right. It's crazy. So he could win this year. There might be an upset in our brackets. We don't know, but those are how our point standings look right now. For the NASCAR Cup Series drivers, though, the guys on the outside looking in, we have Bowman -0, Reddick -5. He's actually faring well than I think maybe a lot of us anticipated. We have Byron -18 and McDowell pretty much in a must-win situation, -38. I want to talk a little bit about our surprises or who we're really disappointed by. Adam, what kind of upsets do you have right now from this bracket? Are there anyone you see as being a potential upset of not making it into the round of 12, or someone you're disappointed by?
I guess a little bit of both. For me, would be for William Byron.
Yeah.
Shocker, he's minus 18 to the good. Going back, looking at the beginning of the season when he had that string of top 10 after top 10 and then top fives and the win, and he just kind of has, I don't want to say he's jumped off the cliff into the deep end and doesn't know how to swim, but he's treading a little bit of water as we head into Bristol. So he's kind of been that could be an upset if he doesn't make it, and definitely a disappointment.
I'm with you. He was the guy I have as my upset. Same reasoning, those top 10 streaks. And you hate to see a driver so hot at the beginning of the season, and then when it really matters most, and when the points truly do matter, have them fall off the deep end, as you put it. So that's been very disappointing to me. And also having a team as strong as Hendrick Motorsports has been this season, having two of their drivers below the cutoff line at this point, I did think Alex Bowman, I love the guy. He's one of my favorite drivers, but that wasn't necessarily a big surprise for me to see him below the cutoff line, kind of treading water a little bit, but seeing Byron below is quite a shock. And I think one of our guys in above the yellow line has him in the championship 4 or in the round of 8, actually. And I know earlier on, many weeks ago, we actually talked about William Byron being potentially championship 4 or a upset to the championship title. So that's a big disappointment to me, but that's negative, Adam. That's pretty negative. Let's go to some surprises. Which drivers have pleasantly surprised you about their performance so far in the playoffs?
Well, the guys who haven't won, and there's really only one true driver that I'm speaking about, and that's Kevin Harvick. Kevin Harvick has had a rallying resurgence since the candle was lit under his bottom at Daytona.
Yeah, it's been really impressive, and because we haven't seen a lot of Kevin Harvick this year. He's going to be running a new paint scheme this weekend. Subway's jumping on as a sponsor. It's very different than Jimmy Jones. I got to wrap my head around it, but he's done pretty well in these playoffs, and I hope that's like his team actually starting to click and get things in gear. And we're never going to know what fell off the bandwagon, what went wrong with the team this year. As Stewart-Haas as a whole, but at least we're seeing some consistency from Kevin Harvick. I would say too, Eric Almirola's team seems to be doing a little bit better. I am shocked by, they haven't run great in the playoffs, but they've run well enough to keep themselves well above the cutoff line, which for me is a surprise. And even though he's not above the cutoff line, like I mentioned, Tyler Reddick has actually run pretty decently, and everyone is so close together on points. Nobody is truly safe. And we're going to talk at the end of the podcast about must-win situations, clinching on points, just to get that kind of out there so you can determine your race picks in that regard. Finally, I think also Christopher Bell may be a surprise. He is a driver that I have greatly underestimated this season. Adam, would you say the same thing, or are you pretty much on par with this is what Christopher Bell does best?
In all honesty, I think I may have made a boo-boo in my picks when I go back to thinking that, hey, this is a short track kind of guy. He won on a road course this year. The first 3 races, kind of his bread and butter. So me personally, I'm taking this L in my bracket for doubting him, not advancing out of the 16. So Christopher Bell, I apologize. You're doing a great job, dude. Just keep on at it, and we'll see where you're at after whatever the cutoff rate, the Roval, at the end of the Roval. Once again, another road course race. So that'll be interesting to see if he can get into the top 8 then, because I think he'll be pretty well into the round of 12 at the end of Saturday night.
Yeah, I would like to also extend my sincerest apologies to Christopher Bell. I've been very hard on him this year. I am a person who I was not of a person who thought he didn't deserve the spot in the 20 car. I was more so like, can he really fill those shoes of past champions in that car? And he has done incredibly well. He hasn't been someone in the spotlight this season, but I feel like he should have been, because he's been incredibly consistent actually this season. If you look at his stats, he's been, compared to other drivers in the field, very consistent. And I do actually see him at this point, if he stays where he's at in the playoffs, advancing to the round of 12 and getting pretty high in points, which I'm excited about. And I also think I made a bad mistake in my bracket too. I didn't have him advancing past this round, and I'm doing this also with my family. My family's doing brackets as well, as I'm trying to teach them more about NASCAR, and they're really picking up on it. And my parents will even watch the races, even if I'm like late to watching them and I watch them later, they'll text me and I'm like, don't spoil anything. But their brackets are actually pretty good. And I think one of my parents has Christopher Bell making it to the next round. So they were thinking, they might not have known it, but they were definitely thinking ahead. Shout out to you, Mom and Dad. But we have our standings. We have everything laid out. Let's talk about the race in general. Well, let's go rating this race above or below the yellow line. And I'm just going to say this right now. This was not our favorite race. I think anyone who knows Richmond as a track knows it is probably the least favorite short track on the schedule. We'll talk about more of the schedule coming up with Richmond in particular, because I have some grievances about how Richmond is on the schedule for 2022. But Adam, just getting your race rating out there, what would you rate this race and why?
Oh, good old Richmond. How the mighty have fallen.
Yeah.
Richmond used to be one of those tracks that I can remember as a kid. It was a Saturday night, either in the springtime or the fall time. I'd be out with my father in the backyard. We'd pull the TV outside. We'd get barbecue, and we'd have a good old time with a fire pit and with the race on. We'd even put the sound system outside because we knew it was going to be full of action and excitement. Fast forward to 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm telling you, that was a long, long Saturday evening. So with that said, theatrics, drama all aside, I'm going to have to put it below the yellow line at 37.
Dang. Wow, I don't know if that's not my personal lowest rating of the season. I know I gave the Daytona 500 a very low rating when I reviewed it. But is that your lowest rating that you've given on the show? Do you think?
Had I been on the show for the spring edition of Richmond, that race would have been my lowest. But today, the fall Richmond race, my lowest rating so far of an official race.
Official. And actually, I was looking back at my ratings because I was trying to see what I rated the one in the spring, and I cannot believe I gave it a 65%. I really don't know what I was thinking, but I think the scale I have of 0 to 50 to 100, I really feel like 50 is like, whoa, that's 0 in my opinion. But if I could go back in time, if we could just rewind the clocks, I would give the Richmond race from the spring lower than this. Because I remember just being bored out of my mind. This one had some intrigue for me, but it also was not great. I was on my phone. I was talking to some friends while the race was going on. I was still invested, but not as invested as I would be at another short track, especially Bristol. I'm so excited for this weekend. But all that aside, this race I am giving right on the line. I don't feel like I can go below it because there was still some stuff that was good, but I can't go above the yellow line. So I'm giving it a solid 50% right there. So that was last weekend at Richmond. I don't think we have to go into it in more detail. Adam and I were pretty clear on where we stand with that. So let's go into some updates and hot takes for this weekend. Of course, we have some silly season news to get to regarding the series below the Cup Series, which are pretty important, I would say. And then we have to get into the big news of the week, the NASCAR 2022 schedule, because I have some bones to pick with it. I'm sure Adam might, but there's also some good things on there. Don't discount the positives. But let's get into some silly season news. We're going to talk about this and how we feel the drivers are going to fare that we're discussing. So starting with Justin Allgaier, he is set to return to Junior Motorsports next season with Brandt still as his primary sponsor. And last year's Truck Series champion, Sheldon Creed, is joining RCR's Xfinity program in 2022. And at this time, there's no more information about that, but still huge for both drivers, one returning, one moving up to the next series. I think very well deserved for Sheldon Creed. But I'm going to throw it to you, Adam. These drivers have been pretty successful in their careers. What can we expect from a driver that is staying with the same ownership? And what can we expect from a driver that is moving up to the next level, the Xfinity Series? What do you see these drivers potentially doing next year?
Well, to start with Justin, him and his relationship with Brandt Agriculture, it's one of those, I wouldn't quite say it's a lifetime sponsorship, but it definitely seems to be that they have full 100% faith in what Justin's doing. They're fully invested in everything he's ever done. So I really think at Justin's level and how young he really still is for being a racer, even though it feels like he's been around for quite a while. It's championship season next year for sure. If he doesn't get the job done this season, you can't count him out. He's always going to be a championship contender. He'll always be, as long as he's with Junior Motorsports. So I personally think that you're going to continue to see the success that Justin already has at Junior Motorsports, and then with Brandt still being all in on him. And then for Sheldon Creed moving up to Xfinity, I honestly do not know if he's even run a Xfinity race in his career, and if he hasn't, I don't want to say it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, but it could be. He's going to a different team. He's going to a big team, even though GMS is the little big team that could in the trucks. But RCR, it's a different animal. Be interested to see if it's going to be just him or if Myatt's coming back to be his teammate. So I think that could benefit him if he has a teammate next season with Myatt. Myatt has plenty of knowledge and experience. Really cool dude. Also, he's really funny. Give him a follow on Twitter if you guys want to. But yeah, so Sheldon, I see nothing but stars for him in the future. He's already proven himself in the Truck Series, and this is just another step on the ladder to get into Cup one day.
Yeah, I think regarding Sheldon Creed, last season, I don't want to say that he was the dark horse to win the championship. I don't want to say that. I know, we had a really good mix in the Truck Series last year for the championship four. He was the driver, I think, for me, I least expected to get it. And I don't know if that's because I didn't know him as well as a driver at that point when I was watching, but he has continued to impress this season as well. And he has a certain maturity about him as well as a driver. And I think if there's any prospect I would think is ready to move up, or at least remotely ready in the Truck Series that does have the opportunity to move up, I would pick him. I think he definitely does have a future in the Cup Series in years to come. I really hope, like you said, with a teammate, I hope he does have a teammate come with him, because for me, and with anything in life, it is so much easier to learn something when you have someone alongside you that is a pro or that is a specialist at it, or that has done something for a long time that can give you pointers, that can help you out. I think the same thing I've said about Bubba Wallace. He needs a teammate, and now he has a veteran on his side that is going to help him, I believe, tremendously. So Sheldon Creed, I am excited to see what he can do in the Xfinity Series next year. And then with Justin Allgaier, I mean, you hit it right on the head, Adam. He and his sponsor are so close. I love hearing their relationship. They're basically family at this point. And it's so rare now in sports to have a sponsorship that is that strong, especially motorsports, when it's so based on commercial money and all that stuff. There's not really a relationship there a lot of the time. I would say from what I've seen, and I could be wrong, but I think Justin Allgaier is always in championship contention, and that's also really exciting to see with a driver that has been in the sport for many, many years. So I do expect excellence from him next season, and I hope he propels himself to the championship for next season, and I think he can do it this season as well. So we'll see what's in store with them in the future next season. But let's talk about next season as well. But for our Cup Series guys, talking about the schedule, because there's a lot of new, sort of. There's also a lot of old, and there's some mix-ups. Now, we have some new tracks. We have the Clash at LA Coliseum, which we got to get our opinions out about that. We have a new/old track, sort of, the Worldwide Technology Raceway. Before Adam and I give our thoughts, though, I wanted to share your thoughts you sent to me on Twitter. I love always hearing your guys' feedback and sharing them on the show. So Adam and I have something to discuss. And Adam, what I thought was really interesting about these comments is they all sort of revolved around the same track. They all really talked about Texas Motor Speedway and COTA, and as opinions are, they vary. There were some people that were for COTA. There were some people that were against. There were some people that were, back and forth. So one from Jake here says that the schedule still needs to be worked on, but this is a good start. Next step, make Texas Motor Speedway into a Costco. He said, which, I mean, I know people love Texas Motor Speedway, but
in all honesty, knowing the state of Texas and the popularity of a certain convenience store, Buc-ee's, turn Speedway into the world's largest Buc-ee's.
Dude, yeah. I think Texas would benefit from that. I think they would. I am a person who maybe is not the biggest fan of Texas Motor Speedway. It got the All-Star race again this season. We're going to talk about that in a few. Do you want to talk about it now? Do we want to break this down now?
Oh no, this is more sarcasm than anything. The All-Star race in Texas. Woo!
Yeah, it was exciting. The Lone Star State, getting the All-Star race. I really wanted them to move the All-Star race around just so, I don't know, it's supposed to show who's the best of the best, right? And how do you show you're the best of the best when you were at the same track every year? And I don't think Texas should get 2 races on the schedule, especially in the playoffs. You'll see on the schedule, it also has a race in the playoffs next year, and that leaves me scratching my head a little bit. Were you of the same opinion?
Yeah, it's interesting. The whole Texas Speedway situation. It's a curious one. If I had it my way, I would put Atlanta in that playoff slot for Texas. One, because Atlanta, new track. So we're going to find out what we hit. Now, I could be eating crow right now because we really don't know what Atlanta's going to be for 2022. We will find out at the beginning of the year. However, we'll see how it really plays out when it gets hot and sticky and slick in July with this new car. So lots of unknowns. I really don't know what to expect, but knowing the fan base, knowing that a lot of stuff is still regionalized towards the southern areas. So swapping Atlanta and Texas, I think would be beneficial overall for fan engagement.
I agree with that too. And I'm also a little biased. Like I said, Texas is not my favorite, but I also am very nervous about this new reconfigured Atlanta that we're going to get. Obviously you can do iRacing tests. You can do all these things now, but Adam said, took the words right out of my mouth. The heat, how the track affects that. I mean, we saw the track falling apart. It needs to be redone. We knew that. The banking.
It was unfortunate because that track was one of my favorites, but there is a time when a surface is just too worn out. Atlanta was too worn out 3 seasons ago.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And this was the race where the track literally fell apart as we were racing on it this year. That's correct.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's time. Like Adam said, there is a time and a place. I'm hoping it's good. I don't doubt that it won't be. It's going to be a learning curve for the drivers and for us as fans. And then talking about, the clash as well. Jake goes on to say he likes the schedule. The clash should be interesting or exciting, he said. And then we also have Zachary Bell, one of our own. He screams COTA. Love that facility. I believe he actually went to that race this year, and he sent me some photos and everything. It looked like a really great place to be. The All-Star race back at Texas is a great thing in my opinion too. Yeah, go ahead.
The Richmond date swapping out from the playoffs to being back into the regular season. Instead of being the regular season cutoff like it was for a long time when we had the chase, now it's actually in the seasonal part. I'm looking at the note right now because Homestead back to the playoffs.
That was my positive. We were going to do pros and cons and what we're excited for, what we're dreading. That's a pro for me. I freaking missed Homestead in the playoffs. I thought it was a mistake that it wasn't in the playoffs. I'm just glad it's back.
Homestead's one of those tracks I would love to see us go to twice.
It's a track that 2 or 3 times.
Well, let's not get too crazy now. Maybe it's the 3rd time on the course.
Fair. Oh yeah, but it is a track that deserves 2 dates. A track that had 2 dates lost one. Pocono lost a date, and they talked to their fans about it. I wanted to ask you, because I'm one who sort of liked the doubleheader there. Did you think it was necessary, or do you think it was a good decision to move Pocono to just 1 date on the schedule?
The doubleheader was awesome. This year proved that, Pocono is not just a boring triangle anymore. The doubleheader was completely night and day for both races. And I think it would have been even more interesting had we not had the different stages. But that's another bugaboo to pick about at another day. As for doubleheaders, Pocono, it works. Not all tracks, though, deserve to have a doubleheader. Pocono is the exception. That would be a great track to have a doubleheader at, but that's not in the cards for this year. So it's a bummer. That was one of the races that race weekend I really enjoyed because there were two different outcomes from the race and 2 different races that unfolded. One was fuel mileage and one was a blown tire. So You got your both worlds.
I actually really thoroughly enjoyed the double headers that we had the past 2 years at Pocono. I thought it was a great selling point. And like you said, it was 2 different races. And this year, I think they were probably one of my top rated races. I love fuel mileage races. They're so entertaining to watch because it's not just who's gonna like just race to the finish. It's you got to think about. You have to like plan and do the math. And that for me is so entertaining to watch. So I am bummed that they lost a date on the schedule. It allowed for some new tracks though. And what I want to talk about first before I let you kind of do a deep dive on one of the new/old tracks in the schedule, because I'm learning about it too as you're going to talk about it. We got the LA Coliseum, and I want to break this down a little bit because I want to read a tweet from Mike Joy, and I want to talk about this. This is just to give Mike Joy's opinion and where I see this tweet where I have some issues with it. He goes, "You want a NASCAR to break with tradition and try something really different. How about today's announcement that the season opening clash on Fox Sports will be held inside the LA Coliseum? You won't want to miss this." Here's where I'm a little sketchy on that. And I read this tweet and I was like, well, yes, we want a NASCAR to break with tradition. I think just to add inclusion, to just shake things up a little bit. But I know there's a lot of fans that were not happy about the Coliseum. I am of the opinion of we wait and see. I'm not going to bash something until we try it. Bristol Dirt Race, I was excited for it. I was very apprehensive about it because I didn't think it would work. And there obviously are some growing pains with that track. We're going back to Bristol Dirt this next season. But the Coliseum was not built for NASCAR. And that's what really kind of turns me off to it and makes me very nervous. So it's not that we necessarily, me personally, want NASCAR to totally break with its traditions and what it is. We want to break the stigmas that go with NASCAR, but I think keeping its roots are so important, at least in like what kind of racing we have. And I'm glad that we don't have the Chicago Street Course on the schedule this year. That's one thing I was actually really glad not to see. And maybe in the future we might see that, but I think it's good to make some small changes right now. And I think the schedule didn't change up a whole lot, which I welcome. But that for me from Mike Joy's quote, not to bash it, absolutely not to bash it, but that's kind of where I stood with it a little bit. The Coliseum, if you guys don't know, it hosted the Olympics. It hosted football. Anna, what are your thoughts on the Coliseum? Just because I'm trying to feel out opinions here and just seeing what you think about it.
Well, my initial reaction and gut feeling was, what in the world are we? But after thinking it through, it goes back to what you said. We don't know what we don't know, and let's experiment. It's an exhibition race. Yeah, it's on the West Coast a week before the Daytona 500, but hey, let's give it a shot. So back to the old adage of throw yourself into the fire to learn the fastest. I guess we're going to learn really fast if this is something that is fruitful and exciting, and not just about the atmosphere, but just the racing in itself. The LA Coliseum, it's old. I've been there before. It's pretty old. So this is going to be interesting to see the actual track configuration, because it goes back to something that I believe either Dom or Zachary had mentioned a few months ago on a Twitter space that you had hosted about how Bowman Gray Stadium wouldn't actually be sufficient to host a current Cup car. And knowing that the new Cup car is bigger than the current one, how are these cars going to turn around in a tiny football stadium? So that's going to be interesting to see how the track is actually set up and laid out. And also, it's going to be temporary. It's a temporary surface. So as soon as the race is done, the surface is going to be gone because they'll have to be getting it prepared for other events that happen at the Coliseum. So I think it's going to be a giant learning curve. I think it's going to be a giant experiment. And in the end, hopefully, once the race is completed, we'll either know, hey, this was a great idea. Maybe we can do this at another football stadium that can hold a capacity for a race car to go around it. Heck, let's get the Panthers on the phone, see if they want to set up a fake track or not a fake track, but an artificial track at Bank of America Stadium in downtown Charlotte. That could be interesting.
I would say interesting. I'm going to use the word interesting. I'm not going to say excited. I'm not going to say bad. That's an interesting idea if this works. And my concerns for this working is also, like you mentioned, the new next gen car. We don't really know how it runs yet. That's going to be its debut to all of us with a brand new track that is not configured for NASCAR. For me, it's spelling out disaster, though it is a pretty exciting / scary move.
Well, going back to, how we're now the All-Star race. This will be its second year at Texas Motor Speedway. The previous, we had it at Bristol, been at Charlotte forever, and the one race at Atlanta. Well, maybe if we're moving the All-Star race, moving the Clash maybe to another like Southern type track or another track, an actual racetrack, maybe that would be something to consider. But then again, the Clash is kind of associated with Daytona, so them moving it to LA, it doesn't sit well with me. But apparently, tradition is now out the window. But the last time NASCAR messed with tradition, this was 2003. 2003 Labor Day weekend was the final edition of the Darlington Southern 500. It didn't come back for a long time. We went to California. Doesn't this sound familiar? It only took them about 10 years to realize their woes. So we'll see how long this lasts. We'll see if it's successful, and if it's a giant mess, then who knows what'll happen. Hopefully NASCAR will see what they've done and go back to Daytona.
Actually, you brought up my point, the market. The market in California. There are now 3 races in California. We got the one in Nevada. We got one in Arizona. So all in that kind of section of the United States. For me, 3 races in California, knowing that market, I watched so many videos on this. I watched the NBC, like Fox on YouTube. I've watched like NASCAR's videos. I've watched Tyler Reddick, Jamie McMurray, and Clint Boyer actually did an iRacing like on the track, and they weren't even able to, they were afraid to like really go full speed. They were just pushing it like maybe 10 miles an hour. That's an exaggeration. They weren't going full speed at all on the track though, because they were still afraid to drive it a little bit. But the market in California for NASCAR, in the videos I watched, I'll link them in the description below. They said that this was one of the biggest spots for NASCAR, which I think is stretching it. I have to look at the numbers, but I think it is very dangerous to kind of be betting this much on the California market for next season. And we took away some races from places that have a great NASCAR market. So that concerns me a little bit.
Well, I'm gonna actually counter that point. Not to butt heads or anything, but there is an interest in motorsport on the West Coast, specifically the desert Southwest area. Living in the Phoenix area for 6 months in 2019, when NASCAR went to Phoenix, there was a near sellout crowd. They went to Vegas. A good chunk of people from Arizona also went to Vegas. And when they went to Auto Club Speedway, you guessed it, another chunk of the desert Southwest did go. So it might not necessarily be Southern California, but there is an interest. They do like cars. They're car guys, car gals, you name it. If it's got a motor in it, they're going to flock to it. So hopefully when it comes to that, they'll be able to be successful.
So Adam here, you didn't butt heads with me at all. You added insight for me. You helped me learn a little bit. Living over there, Adam lived over there. You know better than anyone that there is a market out there. So I do hope it is successful in that route. I also wanted to mention with this schedule, and Adam did the work for me on this. I asked him about this, but there are holiday races because I'm pretty sure the majority of the holidays in the United States this year had a race on them. We had Father's Day, Mother's Day, Halloween. We had observances like 9/11 had a race, 4th of July, there was racing. So the holiday races this year, we have Bristol Dirt on Easter, which I think is very interesting. We'll have to see that. We have Mother's Day, Darlington yet again. Kansas has a race on 9/11 next year. And finally, Halloween. I always love Halloween races. I really do. Got one of those at Martinsville next season. This year I'm so excited. I hope the drivers dress up and participate and have some fun with it. I know it's going to be like a really like scary race because isn't Martinsville the cutoff race for the championship 4?
And under the lights. Under the lights. So it's just a recipe for some spectacular fun.
I'm so excited. I'm excited for the rest of this season to kick off, and I'm excited to see where next season brings us because there is a lot of unknowns. The next gen car, an unknown. Some of the tracks, an unknown. A track that we wanted to mention before we move on, Adam, you have the new track that we want to talk about here. It is the Worldwide Technology Raceway. That was, a different name. We knew of it back then. Adam, Give us your knowledge. Help me learn about this track and how it used to race.
So we're going to talk about Worldwide Technology Raceway, or as us older fans would know it as, Gateway International Raceway. This track was one of my favorites as a kid because this was part of the stretch where the Xfinity Series would have the standalone events. Much like Nashville earlier this season, this race has that same special place in my heart. And I can remember as a kid watching, believe it was the 2007 edition of the Xfinity race where the lights went out.
Oh.
The actual speedway went out. And I believe this issue actually happened in the IndyCar event earlier a few weeks ago. So it's the night that the lights went out in Gateway. Hopefully we will not see a repeat performance of this in 2022.
Hope not. But I think they'll have it together, hopefully.
But other than that, this track, it's a 1.25 mile track, which is a weird type of track. It has really long straightaways, but it has really tight turns and not a lot of banking. So I'm expecting us to probably see a lot of brake wear, kind of like we saw similar to Nashville earlier this season. However, that track had much more banking, comparatively speaking, to what Gateway has. So it'll be interesting to see how the drivers react to all the horsepower going down into the corners and then being able to actually make it through the turn. Because turn one, you don't necessarily want to be on the bottom of the track. You kind of want to be one lane up. Theoretically, you would want to be hugging the bottom, but you won't be at Gateway. You'll want that middle groove so you get a nice slingshot onto the backstretch.
So can you compare this to any other track? Because it sounds exciting. I know you really talked about Nashville, and I wasn't sure about, and I was excited because it was Nashville. But I ended up absolutely loving the track. So if you could compare it to any other track, I know you talked about it being like Nashville, but is there one that we've seen on the schedule for the past few years that's similar to it, or is this a totally different animal?
It's like a bunch of racetracks got together and had a baby because it's shaped very similar to Darlington, but no banking, not compared to Darlington, no banking, very flat corners. It's like an Indianapolis and I guess Richmond type banking. And then the straightaways, it's got speed, but the turns are slow and long going. Turn 3 and 4, much faster than turn 1 and 2. So I think you'll enjoy this track. If you get a chance, go back and watch some old YouTube videos from the Xfinity days when it was Nationwide Series and the trucks who actually raced there recently. So I really believe this is a good fit for the Midwestern portion of the fan base. And being in June, the weather is going to be great. It's not going to be wintry, cold, chilly, nasty. It'll be nice summer-like weather right there in the June slot.
Yeah, I'm excited for the track. I think the way you described it to me off camera and just here really just amps up my excitement for it. I think it is a good move for NASCAR. But with that, that's going to conclude our talks about the 2022 schedule. Let us know in the comments below what you're excited about, what you're nervous about, obviously on Twitter. Tag me in some of your thoughts there. I really enjoy reading them. But now it is time to go to the preview of the Bass Pro Shops race, the night race at Bristol, starting with some track facts. The track length is 0.533 miles long. The race length is 500 laps or 266 miles. Stages 1 and 2 are both 125 laps each, and the final stage is 250 laps. Now it's time to line up the field with Martin Truex Jr. winning the pole for this race. Following him is Denny Hamlin, Joey Logano, Chase Elliott, and Kyle Larson rounding out your top 5. Then we have Christopher Bell, Ryan Blaney, Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, and Brad Keselowski rounding out the top 10. A pretty solid top 10 of drivers that are really good at this track. Finally, let's line up the odds, looking at the last driver to win at this track, which is technically Joey Logano. Though it was Bristol's dirt race, it was still Bristol's track, Joey Logano winning the last race in the spring. Next, the active driver with the most wins at the track is Kyle Busch with 8 wins. The active driver with the best average finish at the track is Chase Elliott with an average finishing position of 12.10. The team with the most wins is a tie between Penske and Joe Gibbs Racing with 13 wins apiece. And yet again, we have a tie between the manufacturers with the most wins going to Chevrolet and Ford with 21 wins each. those were our track facts and driver stats. Now it's time to go into our race winning picks for this weekend at Bristol, and we'll get to all the above the yellow line crew, the rest of us, after we share our picks here. So Adam, unfortunately for us, we didn't choose Ryan Blaney this weekend, even though we have our Ryan Blaney gear and it's a little counterintuitive, counterproductive. I know, but I want you to share your garage pick.
Yeah, like Taylor said, guys, well, specifically you, Ryan, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to go with your teammate, Joey Logano, for my garage pick. Joey, he won the Dirt Edition earlier this year. It's that time of season when Joey starts to fire on all cylinders. He starts cranking out a win in each round and somehow sneaks his way into the Final Four. So let's possibly maybe get started with that Saturday night. And if not, it's coming. That's why he's in my garage.
That's the hope. I like that pick for your garage. I'm going to go with a guy who's probably in a trickier situation than Joey Logano. I'm going with Kurt Busch. And here's the thing with Kurt Busch. He's very good at Bristol. He's also in a, not a must-win situation, but he's got to get a win to really secure his spot, but he has to be flawless. That's why this is a very tricky, very gutsy, in my opinion, garage pick. I feel like he could really outperform the other Hendrick guys that are below the line right now, below the cutoff line. But I think Kurt Busch, maybe not a win, but he'll do well enough to at least give me some good points in the above the yellow line playoff standings here. But now, garage picks aside, let's go to our race winning picks. Adam, who do you have winning this race?
Well, if you can't pick Ryan Blaney, once again, I apologize, dude. I'm going to go with your buddy, your best friend, your brother from another mother, Mr. William Clyde Elliott, a.k.a. Chase Elliott, the People's Champ. He will be victorious Saturday night. Mark my words.
Oh, okay. Marking your words. I had such a hard time not choosing Chase Elliott for this race because he is very good at Bristol. He's won before at Bristol. Has he or has he not? He has, yes. My memory escapes me. So that being said, I didn't choose Chase Elliott. I went with your garage pick, actually. If you can't choose Ryan Blaney to win a race, choose Joey Logano, the teammate. So knowing his history at the track, he won the dirt race. Obviously, dirt is different than the actual track itself. But nevertheless, I chose Joey. He's won at the track in the past. He has good stats. Again, what Adam mentioned, that he is pretty consistent in the playoffs with winning at least one race every round. Also, always manages to sneak his way into the championship four. Fun fact, the year he won the championship, I actually met him, and he signed one of my NASCAR flags I have back here. So I feel like I was his good luck charm for the championship. Just saying, Joey Logano, don't at me. So maybe me picking him is a good luck sign. I have a history of jinxing drivers. But we don't know. Let's see what happens this weekend at Bristol. Up on the screen are the rest of our team picks. And we already talked about Adam, so we'll go to Dom. He has Kurt Busch winning this race, a very gutsy move by Dom. And then Ryan Blaney. Thank goodness somebody chose Ryan Blaney as the garage pick. Of course, you know my picks. And finally, Zachary Bell with Kyle Busch as his winner. Hopefully it works out for him because the past 2 weeks, it has not fared well for me for choosing Kyle Busch as my winner. And finally, he has Chase Elliott in his garage. I think we all stand a chance this weekend to get some valuable points. That is, if these drivers don't mess up. So without further ado, we got to watch the race this weekend. So thank you all so much for watching this episode of Above the Yellow Line, the show where we talk all about the NASCAR Cup Series. Make sure you check out the Bristol race this Saturday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time to watch all the excitement unfold as the cutoff is upon us. 4 drivers are not making it past this round to have a championship hope. So thank you all so much for watching. Adam, thank you so much again for joining the show. I will say this until I'm blue in the face. Love having you on the show. Greatly appreciate your insight. So if the fans want to know more of your takes, where can we find you outside of Above the Yellow Line?
You guys can follow me on Twitter at alucas9166, and you can also catch my weekly Track Talk segment with our friends over at the Podium Finish. And that's about all the places you'll catch me.
Talking about NASCAR on Twitter, the Podium Finish. Also, yeah, check out the Podium Finish, all their socials. As Adam mentioned, they have great NASCAR talk. You do weekly previews. Also, some news. Above the Yellow Line is now on Instagram. Make sure you follow us over there. We'll have some fan questions, fan interactions. some updates of when we post some videos. Also, make sure to follow me on Twitter for daily NASCAR updates and more. But before you do that, looking in the description below, make sure to like and subscribe. Share this with your friends and family. Thank you all so much for supporting Above the Yellow Line. And until next time, we'll see ya.
Bye, guys.